All right, we've talked about the male reproductive system. Now we're going to move on to the female reproductive system. The female reproductive system consists of the ovaries. It also has a duct system. It consists of the uterine tubes, also known as the fallopian tubes, the uterus, and the vagina. And then there is an external genitalia for females also. Here's a side view. You can also see that the urinary bladder, the uterus sits on top of the urinary bladder. So when a female gets pregnant, that whole sitting on top, and you get 8-9 pound baby inside there, then that person's going to have to go to the bathroom quite often. The ovaries are composed of ovarian follicles, and as I said, now these follicles are actually all made before the child comes out of the womb of the mother. And each follicle consists of an immature egg, which is called an oocyte. Okay. Now, as you can see here, this would be the cycle that's going to occur. Starts out with the primary follicle. As it matures, it grows, and then it has ovulation when it actually leaves the ovary and finds its way to the opening of the fallopian tube. Now there's a primary follicle, it contains the immature oocyte. Then you got the Graafian follicle, which has this growing, maturing oocyte. Then we have ovulation. This occurs about every 28 days. Now this is an average of 28 days. Not every female ovulates at 28 days. The ruptured follicle is transformed into a corpus luteum, and we'll talk about what that does and how that helps with pregnancy a little bit later. Now, there are a set of ligaments that are going to help support the ovaries, and not only that, but there's also going to be a set of ligaments that are helping hold up the fallopian or uterine tubes. Here's what it looks like. You can see the vagina, you can see the uterus, you can see that there are two ovaries on each side, and you can see these the beginnings of the uterine tubes or the fallopian tubes, and they look like they're little fingers that are hanging out on top. Remember, they're not actually connected. Right? The ovaries are not actually connected to the fallopian tubes. Now the duct system here, again, we have the uterine tubes, the uterus, and the vagina. We'll start out talking about the uterine tubes. Now they'll receive the ovulated oocyte. It provides that safe site for fertilization to occur, and it's attached to the uterus. But there is little or very no contact. Again, make sure you remember that. No contact between the ovaries and the uterine tubes. It has these little finger-like projections called the fimbriae. And what happens is that they're cilia, and they're located inside the uterine tube. And these finger-like projections are moving the egg, they're kind of calling the egg, and then once it gets into the uterus, then the little cilia is slowly going to move it down towards the uterus. It takes about 3 to 4 days. Fertilization occurs inside the uterine tube at about 24 hours. Here's another diagram. The uterus is located between the urinary bladder and the rectum. It's a hollow tube, and the main functions of this uterus is to receive the fertilized egg, retain the fertilized egg, and nourish the fertilized egg. If it's not fertilized, then it will be the egg itself will be expelled along with the menstrual process, the menses that occurs. Again, there are a bunch of ligaments here. Again, there's no need for you to know these ligaments, but know that there is a set of ligaments that are holding the ovaries up and a set of ligaments that are holding and supporting the uterus up. There are some main portions here of the uterus. You have the body, you have the fundus, and you have the cervix. The cervix is that area where the baby will be expelled. The cervix has to expand in order for the head and the shoulders of the baby to be able to extrude through there, and we'll talk about pregnancy as we move on. The walls of the uterus is called, there are 3 layers. There's the endometrium, the myometrium, and the perimetrium. Now these are different layers. The endometrium is the layer where it will fill up with blood. It allows for the implantation of the fertilized egg. If no pregnancy occurs, no fertilization of the egg, then menses will occur, and then it will lose the egg along with the rest of the menses. Okay, now moving on.
All right.
We find that next
we
we have the vagina. The vagina extends from the cervix to the exterior of the body. It's located between the bladder and the rectum, and it serves as the birth canal. This is the area that also receives the penis during sexual intercourse, and there is a layer that partially closes the vagina until it is ruptured, and this is called the hymen. Now, the external genitalia is made up of the mons pubis, the labia, the clitoris, the urethral orifice, the vaginal orifice, and something called the greater vestibular glands. If you take a look, you can see all those different areas. The mons pubis is the fatty area that overlines the pubic symphysis, and it's covered with pubic hair after puberty. The labia are skin folds, and that's the end of our third lecture here.